The Sinister Funeral Photograph, 7 Shocking Secrets Revealed About a Hidden Murderer, 1902. Grace had lived in this quaint Ohio neighborhood for years, but unease crept through her like the chill of an autumn wind. As a single mother, she had fought hard to create a warm home for her daughter, Lily. Their nights were generally filled with laughter or the sound of pages turning in a favorite story, yet she felt a growing heaviness around them. It was as if something lurked just outside their door, watching and waiting. One evening, while sorting through the cobwebs of her late grandmother's antique shop, Grace felt it the cold brush of a fleeting shadow darting past the window. Her heart raced. The shop was a refuge, but tonight, it felt like a sepulchre of lost lives and whispered secrets. As she reached deep into a dusty box, her fingers grazed something oddly cool of frame, ornate and heavy with years of dust. Curiosity piqued, she pulled it into the dim light. Inside lay a haunting funeral photograph from 1902, capturing a family so strikingly similar to hers that it sent a shiver up her spine. "Mommy?" Lily's voice broke the tension, light spilling into the dark corners of the shop. Grace quickly tucked the photograph out of sight, swallowing the chill that danced along her skin. Shadows wove themselves through the bustling neighborhood outside, but now, she could have sworn the whispers began an echo of lost souls, begging her to uncover their story. Weeks passed, and the neighborhood felt different. An undercurrent of fear sparked at the edges of familiarity. Children avoided Lily at the playground, their giggles turning to whispers as they darted away, and adults, once friendly faces, wore masks of suspicion as they glanced at Grace. Panic began to knot in her stomach. Had the photograph brought an unseen curse upon them? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With dark thoughts gnawing at her, Grace began her investigation into the photograph's origins. Old articles hinted at a long-buried scandal of betrayal and murder, the kind that thrived in shadows and whispered through time like a ghostly echo. The more she learned, the heavier the weight felt, as if she were holding the town's collective trauma in her hands. Then there was Mr. Thompson, their neighbor, who had always seemed kind, but lately he lingered too long in their conversations, his smile turning sinister under the scrutiny of Grace's weary gaze. His eyes were calculating, fixated on Lily as if she were a puzzle piece he needed to solve. Fear dripped like melting ice in Grace's veins, a mother's instinct screamed to protect. Then came the night that shattered her world. Unfamiliar shadows slithered across her walls, leaving Grace breathless. When she turned to check on Lily, her heart plummeted. Her bed was empty. "Lily!" Panic suffocated her voice, flashlight beams stabbed through the night as she broke out into the street, calling for her daughter. Familiar faces twisted in fear, every one of them seeming to hold a piece of the darkness creeping over their town. The photograph's malevolent presence loomed larger than she had ever imagined. Just as she felt hope slipping away, she sensed a figure emerging from the shadows, a hand poised to guide her into the abyss. A whisper loomed, uttering secrets meant only for Grace's ears, tightening the grip of realization, the chilling truth they wouldn't escape. Someone was waiting, and the danger lurked closer than she had ever anticipated. Who could she trust when the specter of betrayal wove itself between them, stretching tight like a noose around her family's life? Grace stood paralyzed, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. The streetlights flickered eerily as shadows converged around her, the air thick with dread. She squinted into the darkness, searching for any sign of Lily, but felt only the cold breath of despair. "Where are you, Lily?" Her voice cracked, desperation threading through every syllable. The stillness felt suffocating, every second stretching longer than a heartbeat could bear. "Help!" A distant, trembling cry echoed through the night. It was Lily. Grace's breath caught in her throat, adrenaline igniting her limbs. She sprinted toward the sound, with only the faintest glimmer of hope guiding her. The shadows shifted ominously around her, and she could almost feel eyes watching from the dark corners of the street. The photograph's secrets swirled in her mind, those ghostly ancestors whispering warnings she couldn't fully comprehend. What had she awoken? Lily! She shouted again, her voice shattering the silence. Panting, she veered down an alley, barely heartened by the call of her daughter's voice. Each step felt like wading through ice water, heavy and oppressive. As she approached a small clearing, she stumbled upon a sight that froze her blood. Mr. Thompson stood there. Shadows pooled at his feet, and the moonlight reflected in his eyes, which glittered like shards of glass. Mr. Thompson! She gasped, breathless with a mix of terror and disbelief. Where is my daughter? He leaned against the brick wall, the very image of nonchalance. She's not far, Grace. His tone was unsettlingly calm. But you must understand it's time to unveil the truth. Right then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Lily's outline emerged from the darkness, frail and trembling. Relief surged through Grace, but before she could call out, Mr. Thompson gestures for silence. Don't frighten her. She's special. What do you mean? Panic clawed at Grace's throat. What have you done to her? Nothing yet, he replied cryptically, his lips curling into a smile, revealing teeth too white against the night. But her fate is intertwined with the photograph. You know that, don't you? The weight of his words sank deep within her, filling her with foreboding. Grace turned to Lily, her sweet face aglow in the pale light, but mixed with something else, fear and confusion. Then, as if sensing her mother's turmoil, Lily met Grace's eyes, and for a brief moment, everything else fell away. Mommy, I saw them. Lily's voice was small, wobbly. They told me they want to come back. What do you mean, baby? Grace knelt, heart racing as she clutched her daughter's hands. Who wants to come back? Lily's gaze wandered back to Mr. Thompson, who simply watched, expression unreadable. The people in the picture. They can't rest. Images of the photograph filled Grace's mind, faces frozen in grief, shadows lurking behind them. A creeping horror clawed up her spine. Mr. Thompson, what did you do? It was a challenge now, fueled by a desperate protectiveness. They're trapped, Grace. I can help you both. But we need to unleash them first, he explained, an unsettling excitement lacing his voice. No. Grace jumped to her feet, haywire thoughts colliding in her head. I won't let you hurt her. I'll fight. The words hung like an omen in the air. Every instinct screamed at her, torn between maternal love and the instinct to flee. She could almost hear the whispers from the photograph now, coaxing her to uncover the truth, but it was a truth laced with shadows and sinister intentions. I have to find a way to protect Lily from this. As she turned, poised to run, the alley seemed to stretch infinitely, closing in, as Mr. Thompson's laughter rang out, a dreadful sound echoing in the dark. Grace, he taunted, you're already too late. With those words hanging over her, the darkness shifted, coiling tighter around her like a serpent ready to strike. What had she unleashed? And what unspeakable truths awaited in the whispering shadows of the night? The world around Grace warped, the night folding in like a cloak of despair. Her mind raced. She clutched Lily's hand tight, her little fingers cold and trembling. We have to go. Now. Panic clawed at her throat, barely allowing her to speak, but in that moment, the shadows deepened. Mr. Thompson's laughter crackled, echoing like thunder rolling through the darkness. You can't escape the past, Grace. They want to be seen. They want to be free. Shut up. Grace shouted, dragging Lily backward, trying to create distance. As she stepped back, Lily slipped, her foot catching on a bit of unseen debris, sending her sprawling onto the pavement. Mommy! Lily cried, a sharp whimper that cut through the ominous hum of Mr. Thompson's voice. Grace rushed to her, eyes darting to the darkness beyond as if it might swallow them whole at any moment. All the blood in her veins felt icy. Get up, honey. Please. She helped her daughter to her feet, but as Lily rose, the wind shifted, carrying whispers that brushed against Grace like cold fingers. It was then her heart dropped into her stomach. A figure emerged from the darkest part of the alley, moving almost too fast for her eyes to follow, a silhouette framed by the dim light filtering from above. Grace's breath hitched. Her instincts screamed that it was no friend. "Lily, behind me!" she gasped, pushing her daughter behind her, her heart hammering. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman with hollow eyes and a face twisted by grief. "Get out!" the woman shrieked, her voice a chilling echo from the grave. What are you?" Grace managed, her voice trembling. "She can't save you." The apparition wailed. "You've opened the door." The surreal, twisted reality pressed in on them, the air became thick and suffocating. "Lily, we have to," but before she could finish, the woman lunged forward, her hands reaching for them, fingers clawing, grasping for life. "No!" Grace screamed, pulling Lily close as they stumbled back. But the alley seemed trapped in an inescapable nightmare, each step backward only drew them deeper into its maw. Shadows pressed against her vision, swirling with the faces of the anguished dead, a cacophony of whispers filling her head. Mommy Lily's voice quivered, brimming with confusion and terror. "I don't like this." Grace felt a rush of determination rise within her. "Hold on to me, Lily. We'll fight back." She dug her nails into her daughter's arm, not out of fear of losing her, but the terrifying notion that what came for them wasn't done yet. The sounds grew louder, shrieks mingling with laughter, the darkness chilling her to the bone. Then sudden silence. A pause. The airflow thickened, heavy with something else in expectation. In the eerie quiet, it became almost palpable, the thrum of something ancient, waiting just beneath the surface. Grace's eyes darted to Mr. Thompson. He smiled, a slow, almost predatory grin. "Do you hear that?" he asked softly, almost mockingly. "It's the sound of their cries, Grace. They're calling for you both." Then the shadows exploded. Figures erupted from the night, faces indistinct, but their anguish unmistakable. Ghostly forms filled the alley, an overwhelming tide of sorrow and pain rushing to reclaim what was theirs. Grace gritted her teeth, edging Lily behind her. "We won't let you take her." She held her ground, adrenaline pumping furiously through her veins, but shadows whispered promises, weaving through the gaps in her resolve. The ominous truth hovered, dark and impenetrable. "Grace," Mr. Thompson breathed, "once you're in, there's no way out. Are you ready to face your family's legacy?" "Legacy? What legacy?" The air thickened again as laughter echoed, leaving Grace grappling with an explosion of confusion and dread. "We need to run," she yelled again, dread pooling in her stomach. Was this a choice they could really make? But Lily pulled on her sleeve. "Mommy, wait." Her eyes darted toward the crowd of shadows. "Can't they help us? Was there a way to break free? Or were they just bait, caught in the whirlwind of a haunting consciousness?" As the shadows closed in, Grace's heart raced, a tidal wave of fear crashing over her. What exactly were they unleashing? "Help us!" she screamed into the abyss, desperate. But all she heard in response was that awful laughter, and the shadows beckoning them forward. The figure lunged forward, the wind carrying its mournful wails like a chilling melody. Grace's breath caught as she felt the grip of panic tighten around her chest. She shoved Lily backward, attempting to shield her against the onslaught of spectral forms pouring from the darkness. "Stay close. Don't look at them," she shouted, barely aware of her own voice above the chaos. Desperation surged through her as she glanced at the alley's entrance. Streets outside lay beyond the shadows, but they felt miles away. Each second stretched, dragging them deeper into this abyss. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her small voice breaking through the haze of terror. "What do they want?" "I don't know. I don't." The culminating weight of her fear turned to fury. "We need to fight. Focus on me." But the shadows surged around them, faces warped in agony, twisting into even more grotesque shapes. Each whispered accusation felt like fingers poking at her sanity, scraping at the edges. "You've opened the door, you've invited us in, we want our due," they sneered, a cacophony that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Grace's hands trembled, her heart pounding like a drum echoing off the walls of a confined space. The specters drew closer, their malice palpable, as if the darkness itself had come alive, entwined with the sorrow of the dead. "Look at me, Lily. Right here," she urged, forcing her voice to stay steady. It was all she had to shield them from despair. "Just hold my hand and don't be afraid." In the midst of the chaos, a spark flickered in Grace's mind. The old stories, remnants of family history echoing through years of whispered tales, could they really be true? Those buried secrets were returning to claim her, to expose her past and their unfinished business. Suddenly, a figure stepped forward, different from the others. This one radiated an eerie calm, its eyes almost resembling pools of still water. "You must remember, Grace," it said, its voice low and gentle, slicing through the frenzy. "They want justice, your justice." "Who are you?" Grace demanded, her voice growing frayed, torn between the shadows and the promise of something resembling hope. As if answering her unspoken question, the figure gestured, and the multitude of anguished faces froze, their whispers momentarily stilled. "You have a choice. Help them find peace, or they will choke this world with their sorrow." Each word fell upon Grace like lead, heavy with portent. "What do you mean?" she gasped, looking back at Lily, whose shimmering eyes reflected a mix of fear and curiosity. "They seek the truth that binds you, the blood that ties the suffering to the living. Your family, your legacy is the key," the figure implored, reaching out with a hand pale and trembling. With a shuddering breath, Grace took a step forward. What do you need from me?" "No." Mr. Thompson shouted, his shadowy form fracturing into 1,000 whispers. "Don't listen to them. They wish to bring you under like them." A howling wind swept through the alley, and with it, the shadows roared back to life, closing the distance, fingers clawing at the air around Grace and Lily. The gentle figure seemed to falter under their weight, the pulsing darkness refusing to relent. "Mommy!" Lily's voice rang out, panic starting to overwhelm her resolve. Grace said, "We can't stay here. It's not safe." She turned, urging Lily to move, but the ground beneath them trembled. The walls of the alley began to swirl, reality bending as they teetered on the brink of something nightmarish. Could the echoes of her family's sins ripple through time, manifesting here in the present? Just as she started to run, the shadows surged forth, encircling them, and the whispers crescendoed to a deafening roar. Out of the chaos sprang the anguished faces, reaching for them, moaning for absolution, choking on their unfinished stories. Grace's world spun, the lines between past and present dissolving. The walls of the alley felt alive, pulsing with energy, as if the very fabric of her fate hung in the balance. "Please! Don't take her!" she screamed, clutching Lily tightly as the shadows inched closer, the air thickening with desperation. What if they were only moments away from understanding the truth? "There's no way out if you don't confront what lies within," the figure murmured, almost regretful, as everything around them began to shake violently. Each pulse of darkness seemed to whisper a taunt, sealing their fate into the night. And as everything collapsed around them, both Grace and Lily realized the chilling truth. Their past wasn't just calling for them, it was already here, clawing at their minds. What awaited them if they answered? Was there truly a way to survive the horror of their blood-soaked legacy? The shadows swirled, thick as fog, and the whispers intensified, burrowing into Grace's mind. She could feel them scraping at her flesh, clawing for something. Fear ignited into a fire within her chest. There had to be a way out, some glimmer of light in this engulfing darkness. "Mommy! I'm scared." Lily's voice broke through the cacophony, raw and trembling. It fueled Grace's desperation. She tightened her grip, teeth clenched. "We're going to get out of here, I promise." But in that moment of promise, the chorus of shadows erupted in a loud wail, a keening sound that shook the very foundation of her reality. The alley widened, the walls stretching into an endless maw, pushing them closer to the grasp of the phantoms. "Grace! The truth!" the calm figure urged. Its steady gaze was a tether amidst the storm. "You must remember there's something you've buried deep. It's the only way to break the chains binding them. Forget them." Mr. Thompson's older voice rang out, fearful and panicked. "You don't know what they want. You have to keep moving." As they stood frozen at the heart of the storm, Grace's mind raced. The blood that tied them, the ominous family legacy echoing in secret gatherings, hushed arguments, and things hidden in the attic. She had dismissed them as mere legends. Should she dig into those memories now? Suddenly, the darkened faces loomed closer, eyes hollow and stretching from the shadows. The whispering grew more insistent, pleading. "Your family, your sin, you know what we need." The ground trembled beneath them, and the oppressive air crackled with tension. In that howl of despair, a memory ignited, her grandmother's frantic ramblings about a hidden photograph. "It documents the crime, the truth that lies buried," she had said. What did it mean? Did it connect to this moment? Was it the photograph? Grace shouted into the uproar, her voice fighting against the wailing tide. "Is that what you want? Bring it forth." The figure seemed to pulse with renewed energy, the shadows hesitating as if it was a deeply resonant thought. "The photograph reveals their grief, exposes the source of the suffering. Lily, we need to find it." Grace turned to her daughter, whose face was streaked with tears. "We'll find the truth together." The moment hung precariously in the air. The shadows began to recoil, their grip loosening as if sensing the possibility of a shift. But the malevolent energy in the alley churned with fury. "You cannot. You're bound to them. You are one of us." The many voices shrieked, their disappointment palpable. With a jolt, an unseen force propelled them down the alley, past frenzied faces lost in their anguish. Grace tore her gaze away and pushed toward the exit, each step feeling like wading through thick, sticky mud. "Run!" she urged Lily, the urgency pulling them toward the light at the end of the alley. The exit grew larger but felt unreachably far. The dark entities shrieked, their wails blending into the haunting echoes of time, warning that escape was merely a mirage, but Grace could see it, a faint glimmer of hope cutting through the shadows. Another push, another surge, and they were sprinting, their feet pounding against the cobbles as the specters howled behind them, furious at their defiance. As they neared the light, memories erupted like fireworks. The photograph hidden in the attic, she could see it in her mind. The things she discovered just before her grandmother died, the truth stitched into her family's very fabric. "Mommy, what's happening?" Lily gasped, the raw edges of fear razor-sharp. "Just a bit more, sweetheart. Just hold on." Their speed finally burst into the light, as a sudden chill swept through the space they'd left behind, like a door slamming shut on a nightmare. The shadows dissipated behind them with furious howls, but Grace knew they wouldn't stay quiet for long. "What's at stake here?" The figure murmured just outside her reach, leaving unanswered questions swirling in her mind. The choice would come again, and their past hung just at the brink, ready to pounce. As the alley closed into the darkness behind them, Grace halted. "We need to see that photograph," she said with determination, "and unveil whatever curse it holds." The shadows were gone, for now. But would confronting that hidden legacy bring them salvation or more horror? The next steps to unravel this tangled web of sin lay ahead, and the specters lingered still, waiting for their chance to claim what had been denied for far too long. What truths would emerge when they pulled back the curtain of dread? Grace blinked, staring at the small, dusty attic door that loomed in front of her, that somber reminder of the past she had long avoided. The rickety step creaked underfoot as she gingerly approached, Lily clinging tightly to her side. The shadows of the previous encounter still lingered, creeping at the edges of her mind, always present, always watching. "Mommy, do we really have to go up there?" Lily's voice wobbled, fear spilling into each syllable. We need to find the truth, honey, Grace replied, forcing herself to sound steady. Her heart raced like a wild animal. Each knock of her pulse against her ribs felt like a countdown, urging her to act. But what truth? The photograph? What lay behind the door that had remained locked away for so long? Stay close, she commanded, swallowing the lump of dread lodged in her throat. With shaky hands, she reached for the doorknob. The moment she turned it, a wave of despair washed over her, as though the house itself resisted their intrusion. The door swung open with a reluctant groan, revealing a narrow staircase ascending into a dim, dusty void. Cobwebs hung like gossamer curtains, and the air was thick with the scent of mildew and something else. Something sharp, metallic. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her whisper trembling with the weight of the atmosphere. "What if it's haunted?" Grace didn't answer. Her own breathing felt shallow, her instincts screamed at her to turn back, to escape before the past spiraled out and consumed them. But the shadows clawed at her, those anguished faces, those cries for recognition. They climbed step by step, the wooden planks creaking ominously beneath their weight, each sound echoing in the suffocating silence. Reaching the top, Grace hesitated at the door that led into the attic, memories surging and crashing against her like waves. Images danced mockingly in her mind, family gatherings, whispers of affairs hidden in hushed tones. But it simmered under a deeper, darker secret. She pushed the door open, and the hinges cried like souls trapped in despair. Dust motes swirled in the stagnant light, illuminated by a single, angry beam from the window. And there, dominating the room, was an old trunk, its brass lock tarnished with age, stained with the weight of family sins. "What's in there?" Lily whispered, barely audible against the tension in the air. "I think it's what we're looking for," Grace replied, her voice echoing against the walls, desperate for assurance, for herself more than her daughter. Grace knelt beside the trunk, her pulse quickening as her fingers brushed against the worn leather. She fought the urge to yank it open, to unearth whatever haunted treasures lay hidden inside. With trembling hands, she fumbled for the key, searching the floor, the dusty shelves. Nothing seemed to fit, it was all just more dust and shadows. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and the shadows in the corners elongated, seemingly alive, creeping forward as if drawn by a magnetic force. The air felt heavier, charged, thick with the memories of those who had been before her. "Mommy!" Lily's face was pale, eyes wide, reflecting the growing dread that hung between them. "They're coming." Terror gripped Grace's heart. "Stay behind me." But the shadows twisted, their presence palpable like an encroaching wave. She felt the whispers clawing at the back of her mind, echoing the names, the sins never spoken. Then, through that smothering darkness, she saw a hint of an edge peeking from beneath the trunk's lid. The photograph. "I have to get it," she shouted, scrambling, the urgency ripping at her sanity. If they could just see the truth, just one glimpse, before she could collect herself, a scream pierced through the silence. It wasn't coming from Lily. It wasn't even coming from Grace. It was in her head, a chorus of despair that rocketed around them, compressing her soul. "Get it!" The voices cried, swirling in unison. "It belongs to us." "Mommy!" Grace turned. The shadows had coalesced behind Lily, tendrils reaching out, whispering accusations. "You cannot escape your inheritance." With a frantic endangerment, Grace lunged for the trunk's latch. It clicked open with an unsettling finality, revealing a collection of time-worn scraps, remnants of lives laid to rest across eras. Among them lay the photograph, a single, sepia-toned snapshot that seemed to pulse with energy, but as she grasped it, the air quivered with malevolent force, threatening to engulf them both. Would the truth she uncovered chain them tighter? Or was it the key to finally liberate them from this torment? As the shadows surged forth, wild and chaotic, Grace gasped, clutching the photograph to her chest, her heart pounding against her ribcage. What had she unleashed? Would the revelation within the cursed photograph reveal the true horrors of her lineage or send them spiraling deeper into the abyss? The darkness roared, and the answers lurked just out of reach, ready to reveal their chilling secrets, if Grace dared to confront them. The photograph felt alive in Grace's hands. As if it were a portal to the past, evoking gasps of cold air from another time, she squinted at the faded image, trying to decipher the shadows hiding within its folds. Lily clutched her skirt, her eyes darting around, searching the ominous attic for solace. "Mommy, I don't like this place," she whimpered, the quiver in her voice a ghost echoing Grace's own fear. "Just a moment, sweetheart," Grace said, forcing calmness into a voice that trembled with dread. Her gaze remained fixated on the photograph. It appeared so ordinary at first glance, smiling faces under a tree, sunlight framing their joy, yet, behind that preserved happiness lay something sinister. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, and an icy wind swept through the attic, snuffing out the dust motes like extinguished candles. Shadows lurched forward, and Grace felt a darkness clawing at her sanity. The voices were back, louder, snarling accusations that echoed through the time-riddled air. "You have a debt," they wailed. "You must pay." Heart-thumping, Grace instinctively tightens her grip on the photograph. It belonged to her family, a bridge to those who had come before and those who had suffered. But to what end? "What do you mean?" Her voice trembled, as if responding to a challenge. "What debt?" "Find us. Know us." The shadows contorted, transforming into faces of agony, their mouths moving in silent screams that screamed for recognition. An overwhelming feeling swept over her, an urge to run but an equally compelling need to understand the truth. "Mommy, we need to go." Lily pulled at her arm, fear bleeding into every word. But Grace couldn't move, the photograph seemed to bind her to this moment. She leaned closer, examining the edges of the photo for any sign of familiarity. Then her breath hitched. One face stood out, familiar yet twisted, a woman with vacant eyes and a smile that froze her blood. Grandma Agnes. The family's dark legacy, the one they spoke about in hushed tones, the woman who had disappeared decades ago. Grace had always thought it a tragic accident. The whispers intensified, a cacophony filling the air with primal dread. "You were born from her sins. Find out. Uncover." Before she could comprehend the implications, the attic door slammed shut with a thunderous boom, sending reverberations through her bones. The shadows roared, and Grace felt the room closing in around her, suffocating her with despair. "Mommy, help!" Lily screamed, terror spilling from her wide eyes. The shadows turned their cold gaze toward the little girl, and Grace's heart stopped. A shadow detached itself, elongating towards Lily, creeping along the floor like a dark serpent. "No!" Grace screamed, plunging forward, the photograph clasped tightly in her hand. She needed to protect her daughter. But as she surged toward Lily, the air crackled, and the whispered voices melded into her thoughts. "Release us," they demanded, "and we will share our truth." With terror coursing through her veins, Grace looked at the photograph once more. Could it hold the key to staving off the darkness? Or would it unleash the horrors hidden within? "Wait!" she shouted, her body shaking with fear. "What do you want from us?" The shadows paused, a breath of silence hanging in the air. Then came the reply, ice-cold and laced with vengeance. "Your sacrifice will unlock the truth." As she felt the shadows creeping closer, a clarity enveloped her. The truth wasn't just a matter of revealing family secrets. It delved deeper, to blood, to betrayal, to death itself. "Tell me!" Grace cried, but the shadows remained silent, swirling around her in a chaotic dance of grief and rage. With every ounce of her strength, Grace grasped the photograph, willing it to speak, to divulge the secrets it held. But as she did, the attic dimmed to black, and she heard a low groan echo through every crevice, shaking the very foundation beneath her. Though enveloped in endless darkness, the question lingered in the air, chillingly precise: what would she have to give up to reveal the truth of the family she longed to escape? The attic held tight to its secrets as the walls shuddered, waiting for a choice that would plunge them deeper into the abyss, or gift them a revelation that could save them. Grace felt her heart race as she stood, trapped in a void that seemed to swallow every glimmer of light. The photograph was like a curse, its weight dragging her down as the shadows swirled around. She struggled to breathe, each inhale cold and harsh. "Mommy?" Lily's voice quivered, slicing through the heavy darkness. It was a lifeline, and Grace seized it. "I'm coming," she shouted, desperately pushing aside the rising panic. The shadows lunged at her, a solid wall of darkness. They whispered promises of despair, wrapping around her limbs like chains, tightening with every pulse of her fear. "Save your child," they hissed, "or suffer her fate." The air crackled, thick with chilling intent. Grace ignored the voices, willing herself forward, forcing her legs to move. She felt the burn in her muscles, the sharp pang of dread as she lunged toward her daughter. "Lily, run!" she cried, the primal instinct of a mother catapulting her voice above the chaos. But Lily stood frozen, eyes wide as they locked onto the creeping shadow that hovered just inches away. It twisted and undulated, a claw reaching for her fragile form. Unable to break free from the fear that held her, Lily whimpered, "Mommy, it wants me." Grace instinctively held up the photograph, its bleak beauty resonating with the darkness. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You can't have her." At that moment, the shadows halted. Their chilling breath faded, and the attic teetered on the edge of silence. But the tension hung like a noose, ready to snap. Grace's hand instinctively clenched around the picture, feeling the cold edges bite into her palm. "Sacrifice," the whispers came again, more insistent now. "You know what must be done." "Sacrifice?" Grace echoed, realization dawning. The photograph, the voices, they were demanding something from her. Something more than just revealing the past. They wanted blood. "No!" she gasped, sheer horror flooding her senses. Her grandmother's fate echoed through her mind, igniting the trauma of her family's hidden darkness. Was this how Grandma Agnes had been lost to it all? A bargain struck in desperation, a deal sealed in blood. The shadows laughed, their voices mingling into a dissonant choir. "Open the door, Grace," they cajoled, "and know what it means to carry the weight of your lineage." Fear gripped her stomach, twisting like a dagger. The origin of the lurking shadows troubled her more than the immediate danger to her child. "What debts have you collected?" she shouted, eyes darting to stem the tide of phantom wrath. Then everything shifted. A light sparked from the edges of the photograph, pulsing brightly as if the memories were writhing to surface. It drew the shadows back, refracting the darkness like a knife slicing a web. "It's not just her," Grace yelled, understanding flooding her. "It's my debt too." The shadows recoiled, the laughter now pierced with panic. But the light surged, wrapping around her daughter, illuminating the corners of the attic. "Lily!" Grace screeched, holding out her free hand, praying the glow could protect them. "Mommy!" The girl reached for her, silent tears streaming down her cheeks, but in that moment of vulnerability, the room groaned, and the remnants of the photograph crackled. A face emerged from its depths. Agnes, her features contorted in an expression of despair. "You can't escape the truth," the specter whispered, her voice hollow. Every past echoes in the present as the shadows began to gather, ominous whispers filled the air, rising into a crescendo of cries. "Release us, or claim your own." Grace felt time stretch as she took one last glance at her daughter clinging to hope. The shadows lurked closer, their grip tightening like a vice around her consciousness. Would she truly have to surrender something beyond her comprehension to unlock the truth? As the light flickered and dimmed, she knew one thing: choices loomed ahead, and she had to make one fast. Could she sacrifice the truth hidden in her bloodline? Or was it a price too steep even for saving Lily? The air crackled with anticipation, waiting for the choice to ignite the terrible chain of legacy, a legacy that seemed intent on claiming its due. The attic rattled as Grace strained under the weight of the moment. Her heart thundered, a drumbeat against the encroaching darkness. Release us, or claim your own. The words hung in the air, a sickly promise of what awaited if she didn't act. The shadows surged forward, their forms melding into grotesque shapes that twisted and pulled at the remnants of light. Grace could feel the air change, the temperature dropping, each breath more laborious than the last. "What are you?" she whispered, finding her voice caught between terror and desperation. "Decisions must be made," the shadows hissed, their tone thin and taunting. "Will you, or won't you?" Lily trembled, the pulse of fear igniting in her wide eyes. "Mommy, please." She tugged at Grace's sleeve, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf clinging to a branch. "I can't breathe." With instinct driving her forward, Grace pushed the photograph toward the shadows, desperation fueling her desperation. "I want to let you take her." But the shadows merely laughed, a cruel cacophony that shattered the silence. "Are you willing to face the price?" Dread coursed through her veins. What could possibly be worth sacrificing? Would it mean revealing family secrets, or worse, turning into the monster lurking in the dark? Suddenly, the room shifted again, the distorted light from the photograph flickering violently as a figure began to form. The face her grandmother's blinked into life with hollow eyes set deep in despair. "Grace," Agnes murmured, a haunting resonance that cursed the air between them. "You tread on a thread so thin. Make no mistake, the answer lies within, but it may bend you. Darkness is drawn to darkness. I want to be like you." Grace yelled, her voice sharp against the encroaching gloom. "I want to make the same mistakes." But the shadows swirled, undulating, wrapping around her like a lover teasing at the edge of comfort and despair. "Don't you see, child? It's already begun. Blood binds, blood calls. You cannot escape your heritage." The air crackled again, snapping at her skin, and an unearthly wind bucked through the attic, lifting the edges of the photograph. Grace stumbled back, her knees threatening to buckle. "No. You can't have her." The shadows drew close, clawing at her heart, whispering her family's history, dark tales of revenge, betrayal, and bloodletting. "What will you sacrifice this time?" They echoed, their voices growing in volume to drown out her thoughts. "Mommy." Lily's voice pulled Grace back to the present, her tiny hand reaching out desperately. Gathering courage, Grace grasped the photograph tighter, determined to uncover the truth hidden in that cruel face. Suddenly, an overwhelming clarity struck her. Maybe it was time to confront the shadows head-on. What if the truth could banish this curse? What if the bloodline could be purged? Get away from her. Grace bellowed, a fierceness rising within her, a mother's love igniting a shield against the encroaching darkness. The very air shimmered with her resolve as she began to chant the memories and secrets she'd learned, words that resonated with power and sorrow. The shadows recoiled, fierce yet stumbling under the weight of her conviction. "No. Release us." They howled, their once certain voices trembling. The attic quivered, a storm raging in the confined space. Grace could feel the air thick with raw energy, hers and the shadows colliding in a fierce dance of defiance. "Lily, hold on to me." In that heartbeat, she knew she could use the photograph, a link to the past, to transform her fate. But the shadows were growing restless, their wails intensifying, a warning and a threat woven into one ominous sound. Just as the light burst forth again, pushing fiercely against the pitch-black corner of the room, the specter of Agnes appeared once more, her vacant expression flashing with something fear. Relief? "Time is fleeting, make your choice before it's too late." As Grace pressed forward, the photograph began to radiate brilliance, the shadows flickering and screaming. Each pulse of light fought against the encroaching darkness. What lay ahead was uncertain, but she felt something shift deep within. Would she be able to step back from the edge, or was the darkness pulling her closer with silent ferocity? They were on the cusp of something, truth or demise. And neither option ever truly promised salvation. But one thing was sure, she was done running. What did the shadows want from her? What change was she about to unlock? She couldn't turn back now. Because the answers were more horrifying than she imagined, and time was ticking. Grace stood in the eerie attic, the photographs trembling in her grip. An icy grip of fear squeezed her heart as the shadows swarmed closer, whispering promises that sent shivers down her spine. What will you sacrifice? They taunted, their voices a vortex of agonized demands. Lily, still clutching her mother's skirt, looked up with round, frightened eyes. Mommy, I don't understand. Her small voice cracked, pulling at the threads of Grace's resolve. Every instinct screamed to protect her daughter from the tormented souls, yet the only way out seemed steeped in their darkness. Listen to me, Lily. Grace took a deep breath, locking her gaze with her daughter's. Whatever comes, we stick together. I want to let them take you. But the truth lingered like a dark cloud over her mind. What debt from the past were they expected to pay? The whispers echoed around them, taunting her about the blood that bound them. The photograph felt heavier in her hands, as if it were the cross she had to bear. Come forth. A ghostly voice yelled from the depths of the shadows, reverberating through the attic. You know what we need. In a furious surge, Grace lifted the photograph high above her head, as if it were a banner of defiance. This is our family's pain. I'll reveal the truth, but I will not become your vessel. The shadows recoiled momentarily, uncertainty rippling through their forms. Grace pressed on, desperate to reclaim her fate. She focused on the photograph, trying to channel the energy trapped within it, her grandmother's legacy, the anguish, the secrets that had been buried. I won't let fear dictate our lives anymore. We can be free. Suddenly, the attic filled with a blinding light, illuminating the faces etched in the photograph. Grace watched in horror as the figures shifted, their anguished expressions morphing into grief-stricken glares directed at her. The weight of their suffering crashed into her with a ferocity that pushed her backward. Gather strength, Grace. You are their voice. A calm figure whispered, emerging from the flashes of light. It was the spectral form of her grandmother, Agnes. The truth sets you free only if you are willing to confront it. Agnes's steady gaze pierced through the chaos, grounding Grace in the storm. In that moment, she felt the shackles of fear begin to weaken. What do you want me to do? Grace shouted, her voice trembling with defiance. The shadows writhed around her, desperate and pleading. Release the past, Agnes instructed with an eerie echo. Speak their names, let their stories be told. Only then can you break the cycle. Lily tugged on Grace's arm, eyes wide with fear, but she could sense the connection forming, threads tying them all together, a mesh of sorrow and redemption. Mommy, please. I don't want to be a part of this. But Grace took a deep breath, tightening her grip around the photograph. We are part of this, Lily. And if we uncover the truth together, we can end the pain. The shadows began to close in again, clawing for her resolve. You will never escape. They hissed, their tempers rising like churning waters. Speak their names. Agnes's voice rang clear. The light grew brighter with each heartbeat, illuminating the darkness that threatened to consume them. Grace felt the weight of generations pressing down on her, but there was a spark of defiance. Gathering all her courage, she shouted the names: betrayal, death, regret, Agnes. Each word echoed off the walls, reverberating through the air as if lifting a weight off her shoulders. The shadows jerked, their forms flickering erratically, the cries turning from rage to anguish. No. They wailed in unison. The shadows congealed, boiling in their confusion. Your time has come. Grace echoed, her voice fueled by newfound resolve. The air shimmered with energy, electric, vibrant, ready to erupt. Face your fate. Agnes commanded. A tempest swirled, light battling against the darkness, holding the secrets of anguish captured in that photograph. As Grace spoke, the shadows receded momentarily, losing their grip. An overwhelming light burst forth. Swallowing the grief and pain like a flame against wind. Mommy. Lily begged, breathless, holding tightly to Grace's side. With each utterance, Grace felt a pulse of energy course through her, a cleansing that shattered the chains binding them. No. The shadowy figures rose, twisting in a vortex of screams and howls. You've unleashed us. They cried, anguish dripping from their mouths like poison, rushing back toward the light. With a final, heart-wrenching roar, Grace seized the moment. You will not take her. She shouted, as the shadows began to implode, collapsing upon themselves. The frantic whispers melded into a singular heartbeat, echoing the memories of loss, woven into history and binding their fates together. And then, with a resounding crash, their voices shushed, swallowed by the illuminating light. The attic fell silent. In the wake of that surreal battle, Grace looked at the photograph, still vibrating with energy, now glowing in warmth. The edges seemed softer, the faces less tormented. She felt a rush of peace wash over her, her heart steadying. Lily looked up, eyes bright with newfound clarity. Did we do it, Mommy? Grace knelt, hugging her daughter close. Yes, sweetheart. We faced the past, and now we can heal. As they embraced, the remnants of the shadows faded into the ether, lifting the burdens they had carried for so long. Grace knew that their family's legacy was now one of courage and truth, a legacy that they would cherish, moving forward together. As they descended the attic stairs a final step away from the haunting whispers, she felt lighter. There would always be a connection to the past, but she wouldn't allow it to define her or her daughter. Let us go home, she said softly, dropping the photograph gently into a box, sealing the past, and as the afternoon light poured into their humble home, Grace smiled. Their laughter would fill the rooms of their lives from now on, echoing hope and bravery against the shadows of yesterday. Remember, as you cling to the light of family and truth, the most haunted shadows can be silenced. Protect what is yours, hold it dearly. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe now to catch every upcoming adventure we explore together. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm with love. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. How did you feel about this conclusion? And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to experience this ending. Together, we can unravel more mysteries, but I can't do it without you.